I look at this and I can make real connections, not only on the principle of human rights, but on the economics of it as well, domestically. So what I would hope we would see from the business community, which seems to lack, is a dual-track approach that addresses everyone's needs and concerns, where we find a way forward on repealing Jackson-Vanik, but also find a way forward on trying to improve Russia's human rights records. We need a vehicle like the Magnitsky Bill, for example, that sends a message to Russia that we are serious about human rights and that we will deny visa and block assets of persons that are human rights violators. So I'd like to ask, particularly the members of the business community here, do you not see the correlation between the consequences of a Russia that does these things and the domestic concerns that we have that actually affect your businesses, in addition to the value that you obviously see as it relates to WTO accession? And can you not join in the voices that say, yes, let us remove Jackson-Vanik so that we can get the full benefit of Russia's participation in the WTO, but let's also pursue these other things that actually have an effect, not only in terms of our legitimate interest in human rights and democracy, but also in real economic consequences here back at home. And then finally, so I'd like to ask that to all the business leaders, and to Mr. Larson, I'd like to ask, do you perceive the ability of Russia to eliminate the pervasive corruption that seems to affect all aspects of Russian life? Many American companies, particularly in the energy sector, have seen contracts broken and agreements altered by heavy-handed regulation and open-handed bureaucrats. Will the WTO membership actually solve all those problems? So I'd like to get those two quickly if we can, because I have about a minute left.
So my quick part, I would say first, most people realize that recognize India as a large democracy. We deal with every bit the corruption in India that we deal with in Russia. So I think we certainly want to see that corruption change, but the culture and the continued movement forward is going to be a long process. It won't be a event-driven process.
Mm-hmm. And on the first part of my question, do you not see the nexus between the actions Russia takes that affect us here domestically, economically? You don't see that effect upon your company?
Yes, I do see those actions. There is a timing issue that's also, the part that I keep trying to reinforce is they are going to move into the WTO, and we are going to lose any additional leverage as a result of that, and they will be doing trade with other partners, and we will be at the disadvantage, and we will have less opportunity to influence them going forward as a result of that.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just get Mr. Larson to answer the latter question.
Thank you, Senator Menendez. What I have recommended is that on the occasion of congressional consideration of PNTR, that the administration should present a plan for tackling some of these corruption issues. One, making sure that Russia adheres to its obligations under the OECD Anti-Bribery Convention, which is just joined. Two, that there be serious cooperative effort to tackle the issue of corruption in customs and tax administration and the judiciary. And three, that there be scope for civil society organizations to report on instances of suspected corruption. I think all of that is part of creating a strong rule of law framework for business. I also believe that the extension of PNTR and repeal of Jackson-Vanik is a part of that rule of law framework. That also will assist, but I think we should do both.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I want to thank you for your statement. I thought you hit the nail on the head, and I appreciate your leadership in this effort. As Chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, I think we are all on our committee pretty sensitive to the complexity of our relations with the Russian Federation, and we held hearings recently on the subject of human rights and democracy in Russia, and I expect we'll continue to do that. But I'd say to Senator Kyle and others who are sort of questioning this thing, we're sort of talking past each other a little bit here, and I think missing the point. Russia's going into the WTO. This is not a negotiation like Panama or one of the other trade treaties we had, where we were opening up and lowering tariffs and doing things. We're not here. We don't do anything. Russia's in the WTO, and if we don't lift Jackson-Vanik, we're denying our own workers. That's all that happens here. What's interesting is that I hope, Senator Kyle, you've seen the letter recently. It was an open letter by Russian opposition activists stating their strong view that the continued application of Jackson-Vanik to Russia is, quote, not helpful for the promotion of human rights and democracy in Russia. And efforts to punish Russia by retaining Jackson-Vanik restrictions only, quote, darken Russia's political future, hamper its economic development, and frustrate its democratic aspirations. So I think we've got to listen to the folks in Russia who are on the ground fighting for some of these things, number one. And number two, we ought to just sort of look basically and factually here. Russia's going to join the WTO whether or not we grant PNTR. And granting PNTR is the only way American workers and producers are going to see the benefits of Russia's accession to the WTO. So if we want to cut off our nose to spite our face, we can sit here and complain about what's happening there. It's a pretty simple equation. So let me ask Mr. Pollard, who produces in our state, and we're proud of what GE does up there in its aviation subsidiary,